Paybacks are hell. Kirby's sister's brother's cat bit Bill Belushi's 45-pound Yorkie on the ass last Tuesday night. And I'm a real big fan of dogs, so when it comes to felines, biting canines anywhere, well, I don't think it's right. So I called Bill and told him, if you'll have that cat impounded, Sunday night you and I can sneak out to the pound and dump a bunch of cornflakes laced with catnip, lye, and Drano into what they're feeding him and put him in the ground. Sounds a little drastic, Bill replied, but my poor Yorkie moaned for 7 days before the wound completely healed. But my effective words about how mean a cat can be helped him make his mind up, and the feline's fate was sealed. Finally, Sunday night arrived. We put our plan in gear, and as we had been counting on, the pound was locked up tight. Not so good at picking locks, we ducked around the backside and started checking windows, trying hard to dodge the light. At last we found a big one that was helpfully unlocked, and stacked a couple cages up to help us breach the port. Having waked a bunch of dogs that started barking wildly, Bill began to panic, saying, "I say we abort." "All we need is a few more minutes, Bill," I softly snapped. "Remember, there's a cat in here that scarred your dog's rear end. He's only in here because you turned him in for what he did. And we're both here because we believe that dogs are man's best friend. It wouldn't be right to let that cat get by with what he did. That sucker's in here someplace, and we gotta flush him out. And when we find that little turd, these flakes will do real good for teaching him what paying for biting a dog is all about." Afraid to turn a light on that a passerby might spot, Bill whipped out his cell and led our way from cage to cage. The dog seemed almost privy to the fact we were intruders, and we became concerned to see so many in a rage. Again Bill showed a lack of nerve when he said, "Can't we wait till Kirby pays his fine and takes that stinking cat back home?" I was getting nervous too, and standing fairly close to a really pissed-off pit bull, I was actually hit with foam. Wiping off the slobber, I replied to Bill, "Stay calm. It's got to be here somewhere, and I know it's orange and white, with a hairless tail and one blind eye. And there ain't nothing worse than an ornery tomcat, especially one that's mean and prone to bite." Halfway down the 7th aisle, we finally found the culprit. His dish was close to empty as I peeled away the lid on what he'd think, because of how it smelled, was quite a treat. And I prepared to do the deed when, just before I did, Bill again piped up. "You know, thinking back to Tuesday, could have been my dog was kind of picking on that cat. The scar ain't all that noticeable, and Kirby's sister's brother ain't the type that doesn't care for dogs or nothing like that. So how about we chew him out and tell him, 'Listen, cat, you bite my Yorkie one more time and you'll be good as dead. And if that one-eyed sucker tells us both to go to hell, we'll throw his ornery ass into that pit bull's cage instead.'" "That's a great idea," I quipped. "That leaves it up to him. And once he knows his options, he can make or break his doom. But if we want an honest answer, best not let him know that, if that fool refuses, we'll be changing out his room." She enjoyed a lot of love. "This is quite a picture," Uncle Theodore remarked. "It shows them in their Hudson with that little dog they had. Abby says that you and Vernon bought him as a puppy somewhere around a year or so before you lost your dad." Abby's right. My father's health was slipping pretty fast, and knowing Mom would need a live-in friend to help her cope, he and I slipped out one afternoon and, for her birthday, bought that tiny ball of fur that we could only hope all the special things she'd done for him that kept her busy, bathing, dressing, feeding, nursing, Corky would replace, thereby helping Mother, after Dad had passed away, wrestle with the emptiness and loneliness she'd face. They became inseparable, just as we had hoped, which verified the wisdom in the purchase that we'd made. Corky was the sweetest little thing you ever saw, and all of us were tickled pink to see the way they played. Just before the funeral, Mother told me, with a smile, after dinner, every day, she'd find that little fart curled up tight in Father's wheelchair, basking in the sun, adding that her doing so both warmed and broke her heart. Sadly, Corky's health began to weaken fairly early, which of course meant Mother had some special things to do. But caring for her baby was a burden she enjoyed, just the way that Abigail is glad to care for you. 7 years would pass before the day would finally come when we would pack up Mother's things and move her into town. Dogs were not allowed, you see, in nursing homes back then, so naturally we took her. It was that or put her down. Learning that her tiny friend would not be there beside her day and night was hard for her. It tore her up inside. But bringing Corky round to visit once or twice a week helped to keep her spirits up until the day she died. Corky spent her final days with us, and I suppose it's been about a year or so since Vernon found her dead, curled up tight in Father's wheelchair, basking in the sun. We'd put it in our living room. It was her favorite bed. Yes, that's quite a picture, Uncle Ted. And in that album, the one thing you may notice that a lot are taken of is that little ball of fur. She's in a bunch of pictures, and there's no doubt about it. She enjoyed a lot of love.